Welcome to our show. Come out, step into the light.
The amazing TV show for LGBT community from all around the world.
I'm from London, from England.
I am from Hawaii.
I'm originally from Dominican Republic.
I'm from sunny South Africa.
Sharing their journey of finding and identifying themselves.
And it can get very, very sad and lonely.
I got divorced. The first few years were really difficult.
Sharing regrets and happiness, empathy, and the connection of LGBT community for equality and love. Come out, step into the light.
Lincoln,
And I'm Alushka.
welcome to the show. Come out, step into the light.
And we're back at it again. Anything interesting?
Sure. Today I will invite a guest that transgender, and she
That's
has
a-
many wonderful stories to share for us and the
Okay.
audiences.
Wow, I'm excited. I think transgender is quite a difficult topic for many people to talk about. I would actually love knowing a little bit more about it.
This one is the chance for you.
Okay.
Welcome our guests.
I'm someone who, at birth, doctors assigned me as males, but I am a woman. I identify and I've lived as a woman, but I didn't feel primarily attracted to men. And I didn't understand that gender was different from who you're attracted to until much later.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Thank you for bringing me on the show.
Oh, okay.
You're welcome. Can you introduce something about yourself for the audiences?
I'm Kaylee Whalen. I'm a transgender woman from the United States. I come from Washington, D.C., and I'm here in Southeast Asia because I'm interviewing transgender people to share their stories for a blog called Trans World Views. I did activism for transgender people in the United States, and now I'm trying to tell the stories of transgender people around the world.
Blogger, right?
Yes.
Okay. And do you travel while blogging?
Yes.
Where have you been?
I spent about 3 months in Thailand, various parts including Bangkok and Pattaya and Koh Phangan, also in Singapore, and now I've been in Vietnam for about a month.
When you were a kid, did you realize that you are different from the others?
Yeah, I knew I was different. I was treated differently by boys. I was made fun of for crying and being sensitive. It was hard to know what transgender was, but I was someone who was just a misfit, and I didn't like a lot of typical boy things. Like, a lot of my friends were very into the military and the army and guns, and I mean, I liked some things, like I liked sports, but I got made fun of or bullied a lot for not being a typical.
And how did you deal with that?
I read a lot. I was very into school. I studied math and science and engineering, and I really just kind of focused on that, but also I did theater, and that helped give me a good community.
So when you were growing up, you knew that you were transgender?
Yeah, so the difficult thing is a lot of people understand gay and lesbian. And I had friends who were gay and lesbian, and I related to them. Like, I related to the fact that my gay male friend could be feminine. But I didn't feel primarily attracted to men. And I didn't understand that gender was different from who you're attracted to until much later. So I had gay and lesbian and bisexual friends, but in 2003, transgender was not widely understood in America. I hung out with theater people who would be different and cross-dress, or we did Renaissance, like Shakespeare plays, and you could dress really frilly and pretty even for men.
Yes.
But I still was confused.
How can you find out that you are a transgender?
In college, I studied gender and sexuality. I learned about the history of transgender people. Going back to the 1950s, a transgender woman named Christine Jorgensen, who's very famous for introducing transgender to the United States. But the thing is, a lot of early transgender women were very much like, I'm a woman, I'm attracted to men. And in the 1990s, suddenly some transgender women were saying, I can be attracted to women and be transgender. And that made me realize that I could be transgender and be attracted to women and not be super feminine, but be myself and be transgender.
So what I'm getting is you can be transgender, which means you are a man that identifies with being a woman or not?
Well, I'm someone who, at birth, doctors assigned me as males, but I am a woman. I identify and I've lived as a woman for my whole adult life, over 13 years ago.
And then as a woman, you can still be attracted to other women. You don't have to be attracted to men. Can you tell me a little bit more about the day that you came out?
Because a lot of people don't know I'm transgender at first. So as an activist and someone who wants to write about the transgender community, I have conversations with people all the time. I am transgender, and I come out all the time to tell my story and to get people to talk about what transgender is.
So you remember how your mom and dad react when you came out with them?
Yeah, it was difficult. I was living in college. I had told my sister, but I lived about 3 hours away from my parents. And I was going to graduate in a month about. So they had not seen me living as a woman or identifying as Kaylee. But my mom came up to visit me before I graduated, and I decided to tell her, because at graduation I'd be wearing a dress. The degree would say Kaylee Whalen. And she was concerned for my safety. She was concerned that it's difficult to be transgender, that she was worried about my future. And my mom loves me and she supports me. You knew them as a boy, and they're telling you that they identify as female. And my mom knew I was different, but it was difficult for her.
Any situation or any story that you can tell us that happened to you in the past that made you feel really confident about being a woman?
In 2006, I went to a summer camp that was put on by transgender people. We had about 100 transgender people camping in the woods. So I was surrounded by transgender people for an entire week. And it was the first time that I lived and was saying, I'm Kaylee, and dressing and acting however I wanted, being in nature with people who understood me. Because in the United States, in the Boy Scouts, I got made fun of. I had boys throw like pine cones at me and like dump my cot in the woods while I was asleep. And here was a camp full of transgender people who loved camping, and we even got a karaoke machine and we did karaoke in the woods.
Oh my God.
And people just looked so amazing, and it just gave me a lot of confidence.
Yeah, like a big family,
Yes.
right?
How long did it take your dad to accept that?
I think it's harder for fathers because they have this idea that their son will be masculine like them. My mom was more okay with me being that sensitive child who would cry and be very emotional, but my dad, he wanted me to survive. He understood that I should be tough and masculine to succeed. And that's not how I understood myself. So it took longer. And the funny story though, he really didn't accept it at first, and he had never met other transgender people. But then my next door neighbor, who we'd grown up with and had lived next door to us for like 10 years, over 10 years. Their name was Pat, and Pat had been in the Marines, was into cars, was kind of
Very manly man.
kind of manly. And my dad and him were friends, and then Pat one day says, I'm transgender. And suddenly my dad is like, my child is transgender. My friend Pat is transgender.
Yeah, so he had to
he had to really think that through. And talking to Pat and also talking to his sisters who were more supportive, and that helped him. So
I can imagine like parents, especially a father, has a misconception that when you have a son, he has to be this way, my way, for you to feel like you have a successful son or something, but it's not true at all.
It is not so easy for a dad to accept it.
And I think one of the most important things is the ability to understand your feelings and care about your mental health and be able to find community where you can share your feelings. And that's something a lot of men struggle with, you know?
Okay.
So, did your mom support you to be connected with other people?
She is a school teacher. She recently, because there's been discrimination against transgender students in America, like Trump rolling back protections for transgender students in schools.
Terrible.
My mom talked to her school about, I have a transgender daughter, we should treat all transgender students with respect, the same respect any other student has. So she put herself out there as being supportive of transgender people using the example of me. And that's how far she's come over the years, where she not only accepts me, but she's very open and wants to help other transgender kids and their families.
What you're saying is a very important point. I feel like a lot of kids that have this misinformation from their parents about gay or bisexual or transgender, and then they make jokes with other kids in the school, and they think it's like just a stupid little joke, or they think it's something innocent, but actually those things have long-term effects.
And it happens to kids, and it can lead to them for the rest of their life having trauma, and it can lead to them having health problems.
Personality issues. This is a little bit of a hard question, but I want to know, does it, when you are transgender, do you need to do a surgery to be a woman?
Something people really have to understand is hormones and surgery do not make you transgender. They do not make you a woman. That is something many transgender people desire in order to feel more comfortable with their bodies. Other people who are transgender feel comfortable not having hormones and not having surgery. And those people are just as valid as a woman. Like my friend Plami from Thailand, she is beautiful, she's wonderful, she owns a restaurant, and she hasn't had hormones or surgery. And I know many transgender women I've talked to in Thailand, they don't necessarily want surgery, but they're happy with their bodies, they're happy with who they are. And I think that's a little bit easier in a society that accepts transgender people.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Because some people, they understand that there's more than just male, female, and that this idea that biology, you know, is dependent on your genitals or something is very outdated.
Terrible.
And the other problem that we run into is many countries and some states in the United States require that you have surgery to change your gender on your passport. In America, your Social Security or your government-issued ID in different countries. Like in Japan, you have to have surgery that sterilizes you in order to change your gender marker.
I didn't know that at all.
I want to ask you about your love stories. When did you have your first love?
I first dated a girl as my second year of high school, so that would be like 10th grade.
Oh, 10th
10th grade.
Like
Wow.
10th grade. It was very short, but she was in theater. I really, like I said, like the theater group. It was my senior year that I had like a girlfriend, and so 12th grade.
Yes.
And she was very different from the other girls. She was just very unique, kind of free spirit. And she had gay friends. I liked theater. She liked the kind of weird music I did.
Weird music?
Goth industrial music. I used to go to clubs and dress up all pretty, and she liked my fashion. I liked her fashion. We went to New York to like shop in all the crazy, like funky stores on St. Mark's Place. So, you know, like your leather jacket or something, we'd both be into like something like that. I remember I asked her out to the homecoming dance by baking her a pie.
Okay.
I baked her like it because I love baking. That was one of my hobbies, and I guess that's not super typical for a boy that I like was obsessed with baking. But I like made her an apple pie, and I left it by her locker with like a sweet note that, like, "Will you come to homecoming with me?"
The pie.
And she did.
So
she did.
sweet.
Yeah.
Did you both wear dresses?
At the time, not to homecoming. But one day I was invited to go to the Rocky Horror Picture Show,
Okay.
which is a show that's famous for cross-dressing and bisexuality, and is very popular with the LGBT community. And my friends liked cross-dressing at the show. Teresa, my girlfriend, wanted me to cross-dress with her, and she and my friend Jessica dressed me up so that I could go in a dress and be like cross-dressed at this show with them. And she didn't necessarily know I was transgender, but she knew I was different, and she was okay with that, you know? It was nice to have someone who supported that, and it was so funny because I remember being like, "You want me to wear this? Really?" I don't know. Like, I was nervous. I was more nervous than her. She was like, "Yeah, you look great." I was like, "Really? Okay."
Aww. And at the moment, do you have any love in your life right now?
Oh boy, So I came to Vietnam to interview transgender people here. And I've met so many fascinating transgender people. And one person I interviewed, I like really ended up liking. And like and he's a very cute transgender man. And you know, I date different genders, and I have dated men. And I really thought he was cool. So later, I asked him out on a date, and we've like gone out on a date, and like I hope to see him again. So,
I'm so excited about that.
yeah, he's a very cute performer and dancer.
So you have to spend more time in Vietnam.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Like you told, you study as an engineer.
Yeah.
And why you choose the way becoming a blogger?
I was very interested in math and science because I liked learning. I liked asking difficult questions. But what happened in college was I learned that math and science aren't math and science is not somehow more meaningful than literature or learning about the history of gender. And I learned it was just as challenging and just as interesting to study history as it was to study science. And I got very into studying the history of gender and sexuality And it fascinated me, and it became very personal because studying history became a way for me to understand myself. And also I started studying Southeast Asia, and I started studying the Philippines and Thailand and Vietnam, and that helped me also understand myself because I learned about transgender people in other countries. It took a long time before I said, oh, I'm a blogger, I'm writing about the community, but I spent years doing paid work in the nonprofit advocacy, so NGOs who advocate for LGBT rights. So for 7 years and more, I worked at LGBT NGOs in the United States, and that was how I learned to talk to the media and to write and to do social media. And sometimes I'd write articles, like ghostwrite them, like for the executive director of the organization who I would write her article and then it would be her article, but I'd be, one of the ghostwriting, yeah. So now I'm writing for myself, for my blog Trans Worldview, and it's what I've wanted to do. I want to tell the stories of transgender people around the world. I want to do it in a way that is respectful of the community and that says, tell me your story. I'm not going to tell you how you should tell me your story. Just tell me how you understand yourself, and I will help share that story. And that's what I'm interested in doing. And that's why I've been interviewing transgender people in Thailand and Singapore and Vietnam and my friend from the Philippines, because I want them to tell their stories in their words.
Okay.
I know you just stay in Vietnam for a short time, but do you have any idea about LGBT's community in Vietnam?
I came here because there was a very large transgender community. Vietnam has a very visible transgender men organization, and I really liked that, and I learned from that. The big hope is that transgender people can change their documents, their IDs. If I'm a transgender woman, my ID can say female. If I'm a transgender man, my ID can say male. And also, and that's something a lot of transgender people here want to see happen, because it will help them get jobs, it will help them travel and have the right ID on their passport. For a transgender man who wants to marry a woman, that would allow them to do that. Now, I also believe anyone should have the ability to marry. Like, two people should have the right to marry each other. Doesn't matter what your gender is.
Whether they are man or transgender or female or whatever.
And so Vietnam does not ban gay weddings.
But they don't really allow it.
But they don't really have
Yeah.
any legal weight.
Yep.
So you can have a gay wedding ceremony, a same-sex marriage ceremony, but it doesn't mean that you now have a marriage license that gives you the same rights as a married couple. So those are important issues. And I've learned about stories of transgender people here who get denied jobs, who get kicked out from their families, who face discrimination. I think actually Vietnam, for me, has had an amazing transgender and LGBT community, and it makes me really want to spend more time here. And I didn't know when I came here just how big and visible the LGBT community was.
Within that community, have you met any or made any cool and interesting memories with Vietnamese people?
Last night,
Just last night.
Gender Funk had drag performance night. This time there was a posing battle.
A posing battle.
Posing on stage and like dancing and like being like a model on stage. They eliminated you like in a game show. And there were like 6-7 people. First round, there was like high fashion and like somehow I did okay. And I stayed. And then the next
You
round,
were taking part?
I was taking part, yeah.
Oh.
And I'd spent forever on my outfit, and I was like very like elegant, like Victorian drapey, 70s
Like-
style, flowy, long,
Okay, I got it.
drapey, the dance battles and everything, and it eliminated. Next round, people got eliminated. And I got to the final round.
Wow.
And then like the category was just go crazy. Just show us your stuff.
Okay.
And I did like a handstand. I did like
Oh my God.
crazy like moves on the floor. Like it was very fun, like dropping to the floor and like very dramatic. And the person I was up against was a model, like a professional model. And I'm like, I can't win this. But I actually won the competition last night.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Yeah, so I won the posing competition.
Oh wow.
Thank you.
And after you won that, like what does it make you feel like as transgender?
It made me feel very confident. Sometimes I don't feel confident because I wasn't taught how to be feminine. I wasn't, growing up dressing up or like pretending to be an actress or a model or like learning to walk or dance or pose. Like for me, that I had to learn that later, and that's harder. And I get nervous. I get anxious. And so in this case, I just let things go, and I just got up on stage and posed, and it was really cool.
Okay, I know that you will stay in Vietnam longer because of the guy. And
Oh yes.
what's the plan in near future?
So I'm gonna perform at Bombyx, Thailand, and then I'm likely gonna come back here, maybe go on some more dates, We'll see.
Okay. Last question is, do you have any message for other LGBT members considering your journey and some advice that you can give them or anything motivational that you would like to send to them?
Well, I think what's really, really important for people to understand is that you can love who you want and live as the gender you want to live.
I would love to continue, but it's the end.
I think this is the time to say goodbye to our lovely Kaylee.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks
for
for
being
coming
here.
with us today and share your stories.
You guys can check us out on YouTube and follow the MCV media link. Like, subscribe, follow us for more interesting stories about the LGBT community. Goodbye!
Bye.